Hey everybody, welcome to Working Horses with Jim. I'm Jim and I've spent the last 40 years farming and logging with draft horses. In this 7-part series, I'm going to be covering some of the basic essentials of owning and caring for draft horses. I know there are many different ways of doing things. My goal is to show you what has worked well for me and what I wish I had known starting out. So each Friday we'll have a new segment of this series, but stay tuned on Mondays and Wednesdays for our normal videos about our everyday life of working with horses. Hi everybody. Today we're going to start our new series on the basic horse things that you need to know. I am going at this series as if there are new people out there that are thinking about getting some horses, or maybe they've got horses and they're still aren't really sure what to do about how to feed their horses. I'm going to show you how I feed my horses, and I've been doing this for years and it's worked really good, and over the course of all these years I've been using horses, I've really changed my feeding very little, and I'm not at all saying this is the only way to do it. There's so many different ways to feed, and there's probably ways better than mine to feed horses, but all I can do is share what I've done over the years, and it has worked great for me. I think it's so important, and I'll probably mention this several times in these series, to have a mentor or somebody that's close by that you can talk with that has some experience with horses. He doesn't have to be someone that is actually using horses even today. He could be an older gentleman that used to do it, and he could still be a tremendous help for you as a mentor. And if you could possibly find somebody like that, it'll help you out in so many ways. And I don't want to, you might have a mentor now that has taught you a lot of things already, and I don't want to overstep my bounds in saying my way is better than his way is. That's not my intention at all. And also, even in the process of me trying to teach this stuff to you guys, I hope that through the comments and what you tell me in the comments, that I can actually learn quite a bit myself. We are never too old to learn, and the more we can learn, the better. And so that's what we should all be striving to do, and realize that nobody knows it all, and nobody's a true expert in this whole subject. Also, I'm thinking as I make these videos, and I'm going to have a series of them, when I go to my next video, I may jump back to my previous video because I might have thought of something in that week that I forgot to share with you, and I'll try to bring that back in. Also, if you have some questions and comments on, for example, on feeding, like I'm doing this week, then I might be able to answer some of those questions in next week's videos at the start of the video. So like I said, what my goal is to kind of base this towards somebody that's just planning on buying horses and wants to know how to go about these things. So when you buy a horse, the first thing you need to have is a place to put him. Now that might be a barn, that may just be a shed. In the summertime, it could just be a pasture. But you need some place to put this horse. So many people have got the horse before the car, I guess I should say. That's not the saying, but they'll actually get a horse and have no place to put it, no idea what to do with it. So these are some of the things I hope to share with you. So you need a place to put it. In summertime, like I said, you could have just a pasture, and depends on where you live. That might be all you need year round. But I live in northern New York, and up here it gets pretty frigid winters, quite cold, and sometimes we get a lot of snow. Not so much, is not too far from us. We're not really in what you call a snow belt, but it is very cold. So I have my barn, and you've seen that in a lot of my other videos, and if you want to look back, you can. I'm not going to talk a lot about barns, and I will say a few things that so often when people talk about barns, they're talking about either straight stalls, which is what I have, or box stalls. And the straight stalls is my preference, but I also really like a box stall or two, and I'm actually hoping I'm extending my barn and putting one or two box stalls out there. So when you get a horse, what do you need? What do you need for feed to feed this animal? Like I said, if you get a horse in the summertime and you get pasture, you can put her out of pasture, and that's really all a horse needs in the summertime. Some people feed them grain, but if they're just going out to pasture, that's really all they need. I guess I'm not really targeting the people that just want to have a pasture horse, somebody that just wants to look at a horse. I'm targeting more the people that actually want to work with their horses, draft horses mostly, that are thinking as I think, that we want to use them for all kinds of different farm work, maybe some farming, maybe more than likely on a lot smaller scale than I do, but still using their horses. So when you're going to use a horse, especially a draft horse, you need to have a place to bring him, even if he's on pasture, to get harnesses on and to get him geared up to go out and work. As these videos progress, I hope to show things like how to harness horses, what are the parts of the horses. Even at the end of this series, I hope to actually drive them around and show you some things about that, more on the beginner scale of things. Brenda is here filming with me today. Say hi.
Hello. And
I'm hoping that she'll throw in some help me out, because so often when I'm doing a video, I've done this for so long, it's difficult sometimes to actually think what it was like when I first started, but that's what I'm going to try to do. So let's start with, actually I did a video quite a while ago now of the 5 most important things, I think something like that, of feeding, and I would even tweak that video a little bit if I had that chance. But for everybody that has a horse, one thing you pretty well have to have, I don't know how you get along without it, is hay. Now hay is something that, for myself, I prefer first cutting hay, and I know I'm trying to talk to beginners, so even that's a whole subject in itself. You've got first cutting, you've got second cutting, you've got third cutting, you've got grass hay, you've got clover hay, you've got alfalfa hay. It just goes on and on and on. So what I'm going to tell you is what I do. I usually, almost always, just feed first cutting hay, and it's a grass type of hay. A lot of timothy, a little bit of clover in there. And I'm very fussy when I make hay. I do not want any hay that is dusty, and I want to strive for that nice bright green. I don't want anything rained on if I can possibly help it. So that's what I strive to do.
And what does the dusty hay do to horses?
Well, you don't want dusty hay because it'll give them what they call heaves, and heaves are just a respiratory problem, and you definitely don't want that. So you want to feed the very good hay if you can. Let me get a bale right now. Okay, this is actually after lunch, and what I had done this morning is I wanted to exercise my horses, so I took both pairs out and I just hitched them onto my sled, and I went up and down the blacktop just to give some exercise. Right now it is in mud season for us, so we have a lot of mud outside, so I don't want to put the horses outside if I can help it. But if they don't go outside, they need exercise, but that's a whole nother story in itself. So here's a bale that I brought in. It's just a bale that happened to be there. I'm going to open it up. You can see it's got a fairly green color. If I really wanted to get a great bale, this would not have been the bale I grabbed, but still, this is an average bale that I have. And you can see there is a lot of timothy in this hay, there's some orchard grass there, a lot of different varieties of different grasses. There's no alfalfa. There would be some clover in there a little bit, I'm sure. So this is the quality hay that I feed, and this is the quality hay that I like to feed. It's the safest hay. A lot of people will feed really rich second cutting, and it's feedable, but it's just not as safe to feed as this. You're more apt to have stomach problems and other problems with really high quality alfalfa or clover. And the manure would be really loose, and so it's just not the safest way to go. That's why I like to use my grass hay. So I'm just going to give them all about 1/4 of a bale. Like I said, they're inside, and when you feed hay, I like to feed I like to feed a horse basically all the hay they'll eat. So generally, morning and night, they will get 1/2 a bale per horse. So a general rule of thumb is a bale a day per horse. So if you're figuring up your amount of hay, which you need to do, that you're going to need in a year, you can basically figure about a bale of hay a horse. I like to go just a little bit more than that because there's times they will actually eat more than a bale of hay. Also, some of my bales are different lengths. My baler is not the best, so it doesn't always have perfectly same size bales. So they're different length bales. So some bales, you got to tweak a little tweaker there. And it's all in it's a judgment call, but it's also more of a knack of knowing what each horse needs. Each horse eats more. I mean, each horse will eat an individual amount, and they're different. Now, all 4 of these, I basically give them a bale a day. Come in here, Brenda. These are my Suffolk colts, and they are a year and a half old. Now they are a lot smaller than my big horses, obviously, so they will get less hay. And basically what they do is as they grow, they start eating more and more hay, so you just have to start feeding them, and you put the amount in the manger you think will work, and the next day, if they clean it all up, give them a little bit more. It's basically common sense type of things when it comes to hay. I guess that's about covers it for hay. Next thing I want to talk about is the grain. A lot of people, grain is kind of a funny thing. I feed straight oats, and I keep my oats in this chest freezer that I have right here. These are oats. It's just a grain, and oats are probably one of the safest things that you can feed. That's why I like to feed oats, because it's the safest thing to feed, and I've done it forever. I raise ear corn, and I do give them some ear corn. A lot of people don't like to feed ear corn to horses, but I do. I just think it's a great feed, but I don't feed a lot of it. Ear corn will bring on other problems that oats do not. The thing with oats is if you really put a lot of oats to an animal, they'll get very, very hyper. And it's great if you're working them hard like I do, but still you have to be careful. Let me get the scoop. This is the scoop that I use. It is, I don't know what size scoop it might be a 4 or 6 quart scoop. I'm not sure how they go by. But like for example, these 2 colts, what I do is I give it about a third, maybe a half of a scoop, and I split it between them. And that's all the grain that they get. Now, as they get older and as they start working, they'll get more grain. But as you can see, and it depends so much on each individual horse, these horses are so fleshy, so filled out. They have done really, really well. I've wormed them, and I've had the vet do fecal checks on these horses, so I know what type of worms they have, and we can treat those worms accordingly. With worms in their system, it takes a lot more feed to keep them in good shape. If you take care of those worms, then it's a lot easier to keep them in good shape. With my big horses, right now they're not working that much, being mud season. So I'm only giving the horses about a quarter of a scoop. When they're working hard, generally 1 full scoop 3 times a day is what they get. That's probably about the most that they ever get. Once in a while, when they're really working hard and actually losing weight, I will give them a little bit more than a scoop 3 times a day. But generally that's about my top. And so what I do is I judge them by how they're working and how they're looking as to how much grain I give them. So that's something you have to learn by experiencing it and just practical trying the grain and seeing how much you could do, how much they can eat. Now grain is expensive. A lot of people like to just not feed any grain at all. Well, horses can survive quite fine without grain. Out in the wild, they don't have any, they have to do on wild grasses all their lives. But there's something about just a hay diet on a horse. You've probably heard of a hay belly. Well, that's exactly what happens. If they're just fed hay and no grain, they will get a hay belly. They'll get big, extended bellies, almost like they're pregnant. And they just, in my mind, just don't look as well as a horse that's getting at least some grain. So I'm one to feed grain when it's necessary, but then again, I'm one to be very careful not to overfeed it and watch that horse to see how well they're doing on that particular grain. I also feed a mineral supplement right in our area. We have we are low in selenium, so I do feed a mineral supplement, and I just feed that once a day, and that's all you're supposed to, and that helps with that deficiency, and there's other stuff in the minerals too. Another thing that horses need is salt. So I have in their stalls, you can buy at Tractor Supply or many places these blocks of salt. These are 50-pound blocks of salt, and they just keep licking them, and they get smaller and smaller. Earl's got his broken to 2 pieces. That's the small piece. So his is getting down kind of small. But since they're in the manger, they stay there, and they're in front of them, you know, all the times they're in the barn. Now these horses are outside quite often. If it wasn't such a sloppy mess even today, they would be outside. But if they go outside today, they just go roll in that mud, and they're awful. But I do not keep them in the barn for long periods of time. If they're out inside for one day, the next day they either get exercise definitely, or they go outside, even if they roll in the mud, and we have to go to clean all the mud off them, and sometimes they get really bad. Let me just feed this hay, and I want to water Lady, and that's probably about all we'll do. So what I'm doing is I just grab about a half a bale, and split between the two.
That's not the way I do it. I go into each stall because I can't throw it like that.
That is true. And if I had horses that weren't so well used to me, I would go into the individual stalls one at a time, because that is a process of training them, because you're going in and out of the stall. We'll talk about more about that as we go on with these other videos. But I want to water Lady because she's the only one I haven't watered. And like I said, I'd taken them out this morning and worked them a little bit. And they were hot when they came in, so I didn't give them their full amount of water, and now I'm going to give them their full amount of water. A lot of people will say, well, you've got to have, or you should have, water buckets in every individual stall. And there's a lot of truth to that. I admit that. I don't. I have before, but we have such a cold winter up here. The water freezes, and it just would not work in the wintertime. During the summertime, I have put buckets in there and carried water to them. But I don't know, I've had such good luck letting them out and drinking their water, and by doing it, I know pretty well exactly what they're drinking, and it just gives me a really good indication of how well they're doing. And I don't know, I've had pretty good luck with keeping my horses in good shape, so that's probably what I'll continue doing, although it's still, in my mind, a good way to do it also. Good. Ahora. Okay, I was going to go water Lady, but she's too interested in her hay. She doesn't even want to back out of her stall. But I do want to show you here my water tub, and I try to keep it clean, although it needs to be cleaned out again. It's got some stuff in the bottom, but this is the water tub that way I will bring them all to. Matter of fact, I'm sure my colts will drink, so let's bring one of them over. And Brenda, why don't you get Earl? So Brenda's going to get Earl and bring him out. I didn't give them any hay, so they're going to be more willing to drink water. But that's a good lesson right there too. Horses, you've heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And that is so true. Brenda, why don't you let Duke right out also? They can both drink. And quite often, I will water a team at a time so they both come out and drink, because they're used to that and they drink good that way. But as I'm thinking about something else to possibly teach you or help you as you start using horses, is because I know that Lady is thirsty, Lady and Bill both, because I watered the blacks already. Lady and Bill are thirsty, but because I threw them hay, they're hungry too, because they've eaten all the hay from this morning. So because of that, Lady decided her hunger is more than her thirst. So that's why she's not let me back her out. I mean, she fought me, so I said, forget it. But because of that, I still have to come back out, and I'll be around here, so I'll at some point go and let her out again, and she'll drink better at that point. But since the colts I didn't throw them any hay, they are more than willing to get their fill of water. And this afternoon, we're thinking about taking these colts out for the first time in several months and do some work with them. This is something a little unusual. Have you ever seen Duke put his feet up there? Duke has his feet right up on that, blocking and drinking. This concludes our first lesson in our series, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next Friday for another one. The one for next week will be on grooming horses. So have a great day.